We love gaming, but something that could turn even the best game into a miserable experience is just playing with the wrong people. People who ruin the game, are very selfish, mean, and it turns out that actually, according to tons of surveys that we've done, Eastern Europe is the worst place for this out of the Western world. We're going to go into this and we're going to look at some studies and numbers based on surveys and polls. We're going to investigate how actually a lot of people in Eastern Europe are making money through trolling, and in the next video go into ways to deal with trolls. So before starting on the GameTree app, we surveyed 478 people with a really in-depth questionnaire. And we had a lot of thoughts that we thought, okay, maybe gamers want this, maybe gamers want this, so we know what to build first and what to market. And the write-in response that was extremely popular was playing games with more courteous, less toxic players. And it was so popular that we pulled the survey, put it back in, and that turned to be the #1 thing by twice as big of a margin as the next highest gamer need. Looking at the data, something really interesting appeared. And that's that in Western Europe and in America, people wanted everything a lot more than people in Eastern Europe, except one thing, and that's to play with less toxic, more courteous players. Now this tells us a couple things. One is that people in the West were probably big needy babies who just want everything more and were not happy with the way things are. And it also tells us that in the East, there's a severe toxic gamer problem, if that's the one thing that stands out there. We polled 2,600 Eastern Europeans on this toxic gamer problem, and it turned out that a staggering 86% said that they thought their region was the most toxic out of the regions of Eastern Europe, Western Europe, and America. We did some more digging and poking, more surveys, polls, and looking around the web as well, and this quote sums up a general sentimentality around the internet of what's going on. My friends and I have met many different sorts of players from all over Europe. We've encountered bleeps from everywhere, but there is clearly an abundance of players in the East. Sorry if someone here is from the East. One League of Legends Redditor was so annoyed by this problem in Eastern Europe that he actually started recording quantitatively how many toxic games appeared in his matches. In Eastern Europe, it turned out that 79% of his games he felt were ruined or severely impacted by toxic players in the games. As an American Dota player, I can relate to this a little bit because in America, I run into toxic players maybe half of my games, a little less than that. Whereas when I queue on Eastern European servers, now that I'm living in Ukraine, there tends to be toxic gamers, it feels like, in a large majority of them. I was reminded of this recently when coming back from a 2-week hiatus, where the first thing I see is a teammate first pick Sniper. And if you don't know what that means, Sniper is a character that's the most annoying to play against in Dota because he just sits in the back and pokes people. And he's also a worst first pick to make because he's very easy to counter with other heroes, and it basically diminishes your team's chances of winning. On top of that, he's also a carry role, which is the one that most people prefer to play, and usually prefer to do those last so that you don't get countered at all in the draft. And the fact that this was a first pick thing just reminded me of how frustrating it can be to play on Eastern European servers. Then talking to the GameTree team in Ukraine, I had my mind blown to find out that there's actually an entire industry of professional streamers who make their entire living just trolling and spamming their teammates. Now we're going to take a look at a couple of the most prolific transgressors. Meet Karina Kozyreva, also known as Shakura Gaming. Wouldn't you like to be trolled by this goddess? Probably not, because what she does in her games is just troll and scream at her teammates as much as possible to piss them off. While at the same time her fans are paying her money to be able to send her insults. It started as a joke with her fans who would donate to her with the worst possible notes they could say, but eventually she gave in and it became a joke and even a theme of the channel, which now has 750,000 subscribers and rakes in an estimated $6.5 million per year. Also on this list we have Denis Petrov, also known as Gladiator Pones. He has an avatar whose face looks like it's just made to be punched and create as much irritation as possible. And that's what he's trying to evoke in people. He's actually a Russian in his mid-20s with voice modification software, where he pretends to be a 54-year-old ex-Russian Marine or firefighter or bomber pilot with a chip on his shoulder. His 120,000 Twitch subscribers pay him about $850,000 per year to be the biggest asshole on earth he can be to his team by abusing all in-game mechanics he can to make his teammates' lives even worse. His preferred weapons are World of Tanks, Dota, CSGO, Rust, and Skype. The data tells us that there is indeed a toxic gamer problem in Eastern Europe, and in fact a thriving industry on top of it that I and most Americans have never even heard of. But there's a way out of this, and in the next video we're going to look at how to deal with toxic gamers, because it turns out that the large majority of toxic gaming is either people who aren't meaning to be toxic, just personality clashes, miscommunications, or people who've just been poked and prodded and then can't control themselves. So we're going to take a look at ways to identify different kinds of trolling and how to deal with them based on just general strategies, as well as understanding your own and possibly other people's psychologies. See you next time.